All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is Mike Tidwell, Executive Director of the Chesapeake Climate Action Network and CCAN Action Fund, and welcome to this exciting webinar tonight where we will discuss only the most important climate legislation ever proposed in America. I'm talking, of course, about President Joe Biden's ambitious climate agenda as captured in his Build Back Better plan. It proposes nearly $1 trillion, let that sink in, nearly $1 trillion to green our grid, electrify our cars, retrofit our homes, invest in climate justice, and in the process, cut greenhouse gas emissions in half by the year 2030. In short, friends, we've got to get this agenda passed through Congress, and it's got to happen in the next few short weeks. It is also a critical lead up to the last chance UN Global Conference on Climate in Scotland in November. That's why we've billed tonight's event as the most important Zoom call you'll ever attend. And to meet that billing, we've got some truly rock star speakers headed your way. They'll update you on the latest legislative news from Washington, scare you a bit with the latest climate news, inspire you to take action, and give you concrete grassroots steps to push our leaders to save our planet. Those speakers include Governor Jay Inslee of Washington State, author and activist Bill McKibben, the amazing Leah Stokes of Evergreen Action, and the Reverend Lennox Yearwood of the Hip Hop Caucus. I am proud to say this webinar is a group effort pulled together by a coalition of regional climate groups that include Climate Solutions in the Pacific Northwest, Western Resources Advocates in the Rocky Mountain States, Fresh Energy in Minnesota, the Acadia Center in New England, and the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy down south. And of course, us, the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, whose members inhabit and surround the nation's capital in Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and DC. So we'll be running the webinar tonight with our federal policy coordinators, Jamie DeMarco and Quentin Scott. We'd like to kick things off with a few images from our friends at the group Climate Power to give you a feel what's ahead if we win.
After decades of big pollution liars, climate change deniers, and out-of-control fires, we're almost there. Congress is close to passing a clean energy plan that tackles climate change head-on. By creating millions of good-paying jobs in the fastest-growing industries, we can lower utility bills for families today while protecting the planet our children inherit tomorrow. Congress, our window to act is closing. And once it does, it may never open again. Act on climate change now.
That's really powerful stuff from our friends at Climate Power. So what precisely and in detail are these amazing climate solutions now being proposed in federal legislation? We'll cover many of them with our upcoming speakers, and we'll also be posting fact sheets in the chat all night. But broadly, Joe Biden proposed a range of climate solutions in March in his Build Back Better plan. A few of those solutions are covered in the bipartisan infrastructure bill that passed the Senate in August, but about 90% are still waiting for inclusion and passage in the so-called Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Bill. That's what we've got to fight for now. That bill will likely pass or fail in the next 2 weeks or so. So with that, let's get to our first speaker. To introduce Governor Jay Inslee of Washington, I'll turn it over to my friend, Greg Small, Director of the group Climate Solutions in Washington and Oregon. Greg?
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Thanks to you and your entire team at CCAN. You do such an amazing work. And my goodness, I am fired up and I am so excited to introduce my governor from the great state of Washington, Jay Inslee. I've had the honor of working really closely with Governor Inslee for a very long time, and he has really led some incredible wins in Washington state. We passed in the past few years 100% clean electricity, which of course we hope to replicate nationally, a clean fuel standard, the Climate Commitment Act, a long list of incredible things. Of course, I think many of you are aware of Jay's presidential run, where many of the ideas he put forward are now part of the packages that are being considered. Governor Inslee, I thank you for your friendship, for your leadership, and I thank you for your time tonight, and thank you for being here.
Greg, thanks for your leadership. Won't it be great when the whole United States follows Washington State doing this great work? That's kind of what
That
we're
would be amazing. That's the
That's
dream.
That's all we have to do here. That's all we're talking about tonight. Hey, thanks for everybody on this call. I feel honored to be with Bill and the Reverend and Dr. Stokes. This is the dream team on climate. I'll just, everybody knows, the science of this and everything. A couple comments about the moment we find ourselves in. I just, short story of what kind of moment we're in. I saw the picture the other day where they were wrapping the General Sherman tree, the largest tree on earth. And they were wrapping it with aluminum foil to try to keep the forest fires from damaging the largest tree on earth. And that would just hit me in the gut when I saw that picture last week. One of the reasons is I went down, the last hike with my dad was to hike up and see that tree. My dad had blood cancer at the time and he really wanted to take one last hike. So we went down there and we were gonna hike up to this tree that is now under threat. And we were hiking up there and he got about halfway and he couldn't go any further. He was just too tired. I'm done. I got no blood cells in me. And he was really, really angry about this. And I was trying to console him. And pretty soon these two people come kind of waddling up the trail. These are not athletic people. They didn't look like they're real hikers, but they were able to keep going. And my dad looked at him and said, you know what, if they're going up the trail, I'm going up the trail. And we got all the way to the tree. And that was a magic moment for me to see my dad with the largest tree on earth. And I'll be damned if I'm going to not let this opportunity, if we're going to let it go by in the next several days, and we got a chance to save everything that tree stands for. And I tell that story because there's parts of it that's resonant to our moment. Number one of the reasons my dad made that trek, it was the last chance he was going to get to see that tree. He knew that. And we know this is our last chance. And when it's the last chance, you don't leave anything, on. You leave it all in the field. Anything we got, it doesn't matter what it is right now, calling your cousins, to call his cousins, to call their cousins, to call your senator, to say, we got to have this reconciliation bill to get these things passed at the same time the infrastructure bill goes through. This is our last chance. The second thing that I share that with you is we've been at this for a long time. Bill McKibben has been at this since just right after the Civil War. And sometimes, you can get a little tired. But my dad said, no, if those people going up the trail, I'm going up the trail. We are not going to let the fossil fuel industry beat us at this pivotal moment. We got too much grit. This is an issue of grit. And we got to summon all the grit we got to get this over the goal line in the next few days. We have to have a clean electrical grid standard. We have to have the tax credits to really move production. We have to have the climate core. These are musts. And I want to reiterate, the moment is we got to make sure this moves forward with the infrastructure bill to actually get this thing done. That's really the message to our senators tonight in the next few days. So I just want to tell you, I love to be in this fight with you. I know it's tough. We're up against some big enemies still, but I think it's kind of like Winston Churchill during the Blitz. He said, these are great days. Even in those dark moments when London was on fire. I think that's it. These are great days for us. We have something that's very precious that not everybody has, and that's a chance to change history and save the course of humanity, literally. Not many people have that chance. We got a great chance together. So I'm hopeful everybody's going to buckle down, find the last ounce of grit, and push this over the goal line. I'm confident we can do it. Let's go get them. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Governor Inslee. And if you could stick around, we have just a couple of questions for you that we've gotten from folks. First of all, just thank you for all the climate fights. You've been a veteran of some of the big climate fights in Congress and of course in your state legislature. So what's the most important lesson from all those experiences that you can pass on to the organizers on today's call?
The most important message I have is that we have a renewable resource. It's called persistence and dedication and spine and courage. Those are renewable resources that we got to bring right now. And we've been, as I've said, we've been fighting this for decades, but this is a moment to get across the goal line. So my message is find that in yourself and find it in your friends and your neighbors and your coworkers and find it in them and get them bombarding the Senate. Get them calling the Senate staff that they knew who you babysit at one time. That's my message. We got to use that renewable resource right now, which is our persistence.
And the second question I have for you is, what is the most important message that members of Congress need to hear from us, the climate advocates, about the Build Back Better agenda?
Do not come home back to this state without this reconciliation package and a clean fuel and a clean electrical grid standard. Do not come home. We demand and expect you to deliver this. There is no reason not to deliver this. And don't tell me that you're 1 or 2 votes short. Find a way to get it done. And it's demanding. This is not a moment for requesting or suggesting or even arguing. It's demanding. And I think citizens don't do that enough, particularly with our friends. Look, these are our friends. These are Democrats, right? So sometimes we don't speak in demanding terms enough. And I think that's appropriate. Because, you know, just to be candid, you're going to have to balance clean energy against some of our other priorities that we have when we come down to this ultimate package. And I know we got a lot of things we'd like to do, but if you don't have a planet to live on, nothing else matters. So I think asking people to be clear with our Democratic senators and House members, this has to be priority number 1. Don't come home without it. That's pretty simple.
I think you've just launched the whole campaign theme. Don't come home without it. Listen, Governor Inslee, thank you so much for joining us and for honestly doing as much as anyone literally in America and getting us to this place where real national solutions are at hand. Thank you so much.
Well, let's thank Joe Biden too. He's doing great work. I'm glad he's there. Thanks everybody. Go get him. Be well. Get vaccinated. We'll see you.
Thank you, Governor. Now, as we move along with tonight's program, if you have questions or comments, please put them in the webinar question feature, and we will do everything we can to answer those in writing as we go along or verbally address them toward the end of the webinar. Of course, we all know that one of the policies that Governor Inslee injected into the national mindset was what he referred to as 100% clean electricity standard by 2035 and 80% by 2030. That policy, known as a Clean Electricity Performance Program, is the linchpin of Biden's climate plan, and it passed out of the House Energy and Commerce Committee last week. Here to tell us more about that policy and its benefits, we have Dr. Leah Stokes, who is the author of the book, Short Circuiting Policy. She teaches at the University of California, Berkeley, and is on the advisory board of Evergreen Action. Those who know Leah know that she is one of the most tireless and inspiring voices in the climate movement today. She couldn't be with us live tonight, but she sent us the following video.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Leah Stokes, and I'm an associate professor at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and also a senior policy advisor at Evergreen Action. And I've been working throughout this year with a lot of amazing people in the climate movement, including those at the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, on an exciting policy that is in the reconciliation package called a Clean Electricity Performance Program. The CEP, or CEPP, is a really bold idea that electric utilities need to be increasing their clean electricity every single year to put us on track for cleaning up our electricity sector this decade. And, you know, this idea has already passed a committee in the House, and we're excited to see it pass the House overall. And it's really important that this policy also make its way through the Senate, because the Clean Electricity Performance Program is a really important investment that would help us keep electricity bills low, create millions of good paying jobs in the United States, and of course, clean up our electricity system, not only reducing carbon pollution, but also really bad pollution like particulate matter, mercury, nitrous oxides, and sulfur dioxide, the things that really make us sick by breathing in dirty air. So this is a win-win-win policy, and Congress has an opportunity right now to make sure it gets over the finish line, alongside other really important investments like extending the tax credits, investing in rural electric co-ops, making sure that workers in the energy sector have a transition plan. There are so many important things, including delivering justice through the Justice 40 initiative, working on creating our workforce through the Civilian Climate Corps, ensuring that we're not continuing to subsidize the fossil fuel industry by ending fossil fuel subsidies. All of these things need to be in a really bold package that needs to pass really over the coming days, weeks, certainly not months. And so now is a really critical moment for all of us who have tuned in for this rally to get involved. And I know that Quentin and Jamie and others are going to help give you some calls to action about how you can make sure the Clean Electricity Performance Program makes it over the finish line, alongside all those other really important climate policies like the methane fee, support for electric vehicles, support for building electrification. We could go on and on. This is a very exciting package. And to make sure it makes it all the way over the finish line, one thing you can do is call for climate. So there's a really cool website. It's callforclimate.com, and there's a phone number there, and it'll patch you directly through to your senators and your representatives to let them know that you support the Clean Electricity Performance Program. You want Congress to go big on climate change right now, and that really there's no more time to waste. So there's a lot of urgency in this moment, and that means that much like we can all tune in to this webinar, we can all take a few minutes to make a phone call, and if we've already done that, get a few friends to do it. Think about how we can get involved in this moment to make sure that Congress knows that the public wants climate action now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Leah Stokes. I always feel smarter and happier somehow after I hear her speak. We hope you'll make the call. You'll check out Call for Climate. That's climate.org. We'll post it in the chat, and also the phone number you can call. You can write it down right now, 202-951-7780. That's 202-951-7780. When you call, you will be connected to your senators and your member of Congress. And as Governor Inslee said, just tell them, don't come home. Don't come home until we pass the full 100% clean electricity standard and all the other features of the Biden Build Back Better climate plan. Now, meanwhile, it's no secret to anyone in America that one of the biggest challenges to all of this becoming law in Washington is Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. And here to tell us more about West Virginia and Joe Manchin and what you can do to help get this bill passed is Quentin Scott. He is the federal policy coordinator for the Chesapeake Climate Action Network and an all-around superstar himself. But first, we took a camera around West Virginia recently so that people there could tell you directly why they want Joe Manchin to step up to the plate.
Clean energy standard is central to the American Jobs Plan, creating hundreds of thousands of good-paying, union, clean energy jobs across the country.
It will dramatically reduce air pollution, protecting the health of West Virginians, especially those in communities already suffering from pollution and economic hardship.
It will deliver consistent, reliable power to West Virginians.
And it could even lower my electricity bill.
It will help us hit 100% clean electricity by 2035, which is critical to ensuring clean air and water for our communities and avoiding the worst impacts of climate change.
It will bring $18 billion in clean energy investment to West Virginia. It will drive innovation, creating the opportunity for more jobs and a cleaner environment.
And 80% clean electricity by 2030 is achievable. We can get there, and West Virginians across the state will feel the benefits.
Wow, that's great. And now I want to hand it over to CCAN's Quentin Scott, who again is our federal policy coordinator and has been coordinating all our organizing in West Virginia. Quentin.
Well, Mike, thank you for that introduction. Every time I watch that video, I get excited about the benefits that West Virginians will get if this passes into law. Like I said, every time we play that, I get really excited. And so I'm glad to be here to talk about what we're doing in West Virginia and what the sort of political landscape looks like for climate policies in terms of West Virginia. So I'm sure if you've watched even a minute of cable news, there's no doubt you've heard Joe Manchin's name hundreds, maybe even thousands of times. Senator Manchin is arguably the most conservative Democrat in Congress. Therefore, he's considered the final vote in a 50-50 Senate before Vice President breaks the tie. This year alone, we've seen Manchin hold back many progressive policies like raising the minimum wage and voting rights. Now Manchin is in a position to directly craft Biden's climate policy. The Clean Electricity Performance Program is destined to pass through the Senate Energy and Natural Resource Committee, which Senator Manchin chairs. The Clean Electricity Performance Program is the main driver to reduce carbon emissions in the Biden climate plan. For many, including myself, are very weary that such an important policy would be crafted by Manchin because of his clear connections to the fossil fuel industry, who don't want to see this program succeed. According to the New York Times article that ran just Sunday, Manchin received nearly $500,000 in dividends last year from stock in a coal brokerage firm, and it's well documented how much he receives in campaign contributions from fossil fuel executives in Houston, Texas. And we know Houston Texans don't care about what's happening in West Virginia. One person pointed out that having Senator Manchin craft climate policy is like having a pyromaniac work at a local fire station. We have already seen big polluters flex their influence with Manchin to try to dilute the set policy that the House of Representatives have already set at a high benchmark. In the same New York Times article, anonymous sources reported Mr. Manchin does support some climate measures proposed by Mr. Biden, but is working to ensure they protect and extend the use of coal and natural gas. And we know we need to end both. Our four biggest concerns with the big polluters version of a set policy. Number one, it reduces the annual increases of clean energy from 4% to 3%. Number two, it reduces the amount of money that utilities get for building clean energy, which lessens the impact of the program it will have. Number three, pays utilities to continue to run gas plants and even build new ones. And obviously that's very climate backwards. And number four, reduces or eliminates the penalties for utilities who do not build clean energy, which cuts the needs out the whole program. And we know we need penalties in order to encourage these corporations to do what's right. However, the fight is not over. Nothing is set in stone. We still have the opportunity to make a difference. We've already seen West Virginians all over push back directly to Manchin staff about not diluting the SEP program. Groups have flooded Manchin's inbox with hundreds of emails, and dozens of actions in person have been taking place in support of a bold climate infrastructure package that meets the scale of the crisis. And we're not done. Every Tuesday and Thursday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., CCAN will be hosting a national phone bank. Starting this Tuesday, volunteers will be able to call West Virginians and build support for SEP and other climate provisions. If we identify agreement, we'll encourage West Virginians to immediately call Manchin's office via a patch-through feature. Our fantastic organizer, Holly, who you saw in our video, will do the training for volunteers and tell them everything that they need to know. So if you are unsure about how to do it now, show up to the training on Tuesday and we'll get you started. The more messages that we leave for Manchin, the more he knows not to negotiate away crucial climate policies like SEP. What I need for everyone to do on this Zoom is to reach out to their members of Congress, use the call for climate that Dr. Leah Stokes talked about, and it's in the chat. But as soon as you get done doing that, go to this website. Thank you, Jamie. You already posted it in the chat. We're going to go to that website and commit to doing every Tuesday and Thursday for the next month, calling West Virginians. This is our window, and we cannot miss this moment, because once the moment closes, we might not have another opportunity for another 10 years, and that'll be too late. So let's not take this moment for granted, and let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Quentin Scott. And I know I am going to sign up to phone bank into West Virginia. Just calling my members of Congress takes 5 minutes, but I want to spend hours making a difference on this issue. And if the number one thing you can do in this country right now to fight climate change is to join this phone bank. Help us call into West Virginia. Even if you're not from West Virginia, you'll be calling West Virginians and encouraging them to call Joe Manchin. So this is amazing stuff. We will also email everyone who RSVP'd for this event. We'll email this information as well. So we hope that you'll join me and Quentin and Holly and our whole West Virginia team to phone bank. Make it part of your life until this bill passes. So thank you, Quentin. Now we're very lucky to be joined by the godfather. My original script said the grandfather of our movement for Bill McKibben, but I think he's more a godfather of our movement, the irrepressible Bill McKibben. He wrote the first book for a general audience on climate change, the end of nature, and has just founded a new advocacy group called Third Act. Bill McKibben, good to have you.
Mike, what a pleasure to be with everybody. What a pleasure to hear the governor. What a pleasure to hear Leah and Quentin. And to know that we've got Reverend Yearwood yet to go. This is a remarkable moment. And it's a moment that we really have to seize. Three weeks ago tonight, I guess, I was in New York City when that rainstorm hit at the end of the remnants of Hurricane Ida. And it was like no rain anyone's ever seen. They've been measuring rainfall in New York for 150 years, and this crushed all the records. In fact, it crushed the record that had been set 11 days earlier. That's the kind of world we live in now, a world where the climate damage is coming so fast and furious we can barely keep track of it. We've had the hottest July ever on this planet this year. We've seen the biggest forest fires in the history of this planet this summer. We've seen smoke making its way across the continent. We've seen extraordinary damage. We're way past the time when we're getting wake-up calls about climate change. We're getting hit over the head with climate change. And we're really reaching the moments when our last chances to really physically intervene and change the course of future events is on us. The world's climate scientists told us in 2018 that if we wanted to have any chance of meeting the targets that we'd set in Paris, we needed to cut emissions in half by 2030. 2030 is 8 years and change away. This is our moment. And if we don't take this moment, well, there's some of us on this call who are old enough to have a pretty good sense of what happens. We remember the last time around, 2009, when there was climate legislation in Congress and the fossil fuel industry beat it. And then we had a 12-year pause before we got any more. That's how it works in DC. That last legislation in 2009 wasn't that great, but it would have been a help. And now the legislation that we have in front of us is terrific. It actually meets the standard that we need, or at least begins to. It puts serious money behind the challenges that we really face, and it does it in the best possible ways. One of the most important things about this legislation is the way that it earmarks a serious percentage of this money for the most vulnerable, lowest income communities. It's opposite the way we usually do legislation in America, which is a series of giveaways for the richest and most wealthy. And so what choice do we have but to work as fast as we possibly can, as hard as we possibly can? We are on the knife's edge of either victory or defeat. I mean, this is as close as it comes. It's like a movie, we're either going to win it when Kamala Harris casts the tie-breaking vote in the Senate, or we're going to lose it by a vote or two, and with it lose the hopes of, you think that young people are despairing at the moment and cynical about our system. What if this goes down? We cannot let that happen for an endless number of reasons. And so we need to come together. And as we do, we need to remind our legislators of something they don't always know as well as they should, which is that a lot has changed in the 12 years since the last climate legislation. Renewable energy is 90% cheaper than it was then. It's now the cheapest form of power on the planet. It would be a great economic boon to do the right thing here. The only reason we wouldn't do it, the only reason, is to protect the vested interests of the coal and gas and oil industries. But those are powerful vested interests, and they've won before, and they'll win this time unless we manage to stand up with everything we've got right now. Right now, if anyone you know has been keeping their powder dry, waiting for the most important moment, well, now is the moment, and the time has come. So I am so grateful to CCAN for setting up these opportunities to allow people to mobilize. And everybody on this call obviously is already really invested in this work. So what we need to do is each find a bunch of people to join in this phone banking. We don't need hundreds of people doing it. We need thousands of people doing it. West Virginia's, all my mother's family is from West Virginia. It's not the biggest state in the union, and there aren't an impossible number of people to call on the phone. If we do our work, it'll resonate. We don't know how it'll come out, but we've got to give it everything we've got.
Bill, thank you so much. And if you have time, I'd like to follow up with a couple of quick questions. Sure. You talked about the repercussions, on our psyches and on the planet earlier. I was with you in Copenhagen in 2009, and what a bitter defeat that was. What would be the international repercussions if we don't succeed on this?
Like, if we don't pass this, we're basically telling John Kerry to go over to Glasgow and walk into the conference hall naked. He's going to have nothing to bargain with. It's going to lead to the collapse of those talks in Glasgow. Because remember, in order to deal with climate change, we don't just need to get things going on the right track here right now. We need to happen around the world. And so an extraordinary amount hangs on this. Just like the US Senate, we can't, it takes years and years and years to build up to the point where it's possible to imagine real and big action on the international scene. And that's the reason above all that we can't delay. This thing isn't worth anywhere near as much if it passes in January as if it passes in the next few weeks, because that November 1st beginning of that meeting in Glasgow looms over everything right now.
And also, Bill, I think you were out recently stumping with Senator Bernie Sanders, talking about this bill. What can you report from that experience?
Well, of course, as always with Bernie, it was good fun and powerful. Along with Governor Inslee, I'd say Bernie Sanders has done more to sort of supply the inspiration and the juice behind this bill than probably anybody in the country. Proved that that there was a big, huge number of people in America who wanted action not only on this, but on the other parts of this bill that build human infrastructure for a decent society, not just a sustainable society, but a decent one. And he said at one point, there's this $1 trillion Republican-backed infrastructure bill, which is all about building bridges and roads and handing a bunch of gifts to the fossil fuel industry for carbon sequestration and the like, but mostly bridges and roads, the old traditional stuff. And Bernie said, yeah, okay, we'll pass that, but we're not going to build bridges just so we can have people sleeping under them. We need to pass the human infrastructure too in this reconciliation bill. We need to pass a bill for all Americans. And by God, Mike, this doesn't take us back to the Obama years or the Clinton years. This takes us back to the LBJ years, to the last time as societies we actually tried to think about the future and take care of each other. And it is a remarkable opportunity, and well, we got to get it done. So I should shut up and let you get on to other people, and so that everybody can get on to the real work of doing this. Thanks to CCAN, thanks to everybody else for supplying the energy that we're going to need. There's going to be a lot of Diet Coke in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and that's just the way it's got to be.
Bill, thank you so much. I can't count how many times I've probably introduced you at events or shared a stage with you in events and across the country and across the world, and it never gets old, my friend. And I look forward to raising a can of Diet Coke with you when it's all over. So thanks again, Bill. Take care.
When it's over, we'll do something a little stronger than Diet Coke, dude.
Hit the hard stuff. Thanks again. So anyway, as you could tell, there is a lot going on in Capitol Hill, and our next speaker, Jamie DeMarco, who is the Federal Policy Director here at Chesapeake Climate Action Network, will help us parse out exactly what is happening. Jamie.
Wow, I just got to say that it is always so striking to hear you, Bill, put the arrow right through my heart saying, we have got to do it. I feel it every time. So thank you for that. And things are scary on Capitol Hill. I honestly, this is like being very honest, I've had a nightmare every night for the past week and a half because it's getting so stressful. We have a lot on the line. It could go wrong in a lot of different ways. But to step back and describe the scene, because we've been talking a lot about the bill we need to pass and just want to make sure we're all on the same page. When Biden ran, he ran on a bold, progressive climate platform that we remember he called the Build Back Better agenda. Once elected, he decided to enact that agenda through two tracks, the bipartisan bill and the reconciliation bill. The bipartisan bill has been nicknamed the Exxon bill because Exxon lobbyists have admitted to working really hard to weaken it and water all the climate provisions in it way down. The reconciliation bill has been nicknamed the Build Back Better Act because it will actually build us back better. So those are the two bills in Congress right now. The bipartisan Exxon bill, which we say boo to, and the Reconciliation Build Back Better Act, which we say yay to. And let's just go over quickly what is in both of these bills. I'm going to share screen. So this is an image that represents what Biden initially proposed. He said, I want all of this. I want housing and schools. I want home and community care. I want clean energy tax credits, all in my spending package. And the next image I'm going to show is what actually got put into the bipartisan bill. So as you can see, almost everything got cut. And what remains is mostly repaving roads and bridges, rebuilding airports, doing some road safety. There's some good stuff. There's some public transportation, power infrastructure, broadband, resiliency, capping water in mines. But mostly, this is a roads and bridges bill. These are these two images compared to each other. So that roads and bridges bill is the bipartisan Exxon bill. And really everything that got cut is going into the Build Back Better reconciliation package, which, it's still unclear what's going to be included. We're arguing every day. Members of Congress are arguing every day about how much of all these wonderful things are actually going to be included. Will it be big and ambitious or small and weakened? And Bill mentioned that the IPCC told us in 2018 we need to cut our emissions in half by 2030. And here I'm going to show a sort of pie chart that shows how we can actually potentially get to 50% by 2030 with the legislation Congress is proposing. And so all the percentages you're about to see are percentages of 50%. So first of all, we've already reduced we've gotten 19% of the way to cutting our emissions in half since 2005. So good work, everyone who's been retiring coal plants and building wind and solar. We are doing some things right. We've reduced a lot of emissions. But on current trends, we're only going to reduce our emissions another 4% of 50% between now and 2030, which is not enough to get us there. What I'm going to show you next is what the Build Back Better Reconciliation Act would do. It would get us almost all the way to that 50% reduction. It would actually get us to 45% reduction below 2005 levels by 2030, which is pretty incredible. Almost all of this is Build Back Better reconciliation. The bipartisan bill has some of this stuff at the bottom, like this 0.1% capping abandoned mines, this 1% for transit electrification and ridership increase. That's all in the bipartisan Exxon bill. But everything else is in the Build Back Better reconciliation bill. That's the one we really, really want. And filling out this little gap here at the bottom, they basically put to be determined, additional regulatory and state action. All that to say that even after we pass this dream bill in Congress, knock on wood, we're still going to have to get up the next day and pass more state bills and push Biden to do more through executive action. So that's a little bit of context of what is in these bills. I'm going to be putting links in the chat in a moment so that y'all can review what I just shared. Don't try to be taking notes unless you really want to. But Biden and Schumer and Pelosi all said from the very beginning that both of these bills needed to move together. One cannot move without the other, they said. And with that understanding, the Exxon bill was passed in the Senate this August with every progressive Democrat voting for it. But they voted for it under the deal that it would move in tandem with the bipartisan Build Back Better bill. Now, conservative Democrats in the House are trying to renege on that deal. They are trying to demand that the bipartisan Exxon deal pass before the Reconciliation Build Back Better Act. And these Democrats have made it clear they care more about protecting the uber rich than the people they serve. And they include Representative Gottheimer, Bordeaux, Golden, Gonzalez, Cellular, Case, Costa, Schrader, and Vela. Their names should ring in the halls of shame, and we should all, if any of them are your representatives, call to let them know how upset you are. The conservative Democrats have forced Nancy Pelosi to schedule a vote in the House on September 27th. That's this Monday on the Exxon bill. Progressives are pushing back, saying they're not going to vote for it. Moderates are saying we're going to force the vote. We hear that the whip, the Democratic whip, Steny Hoyer, is trying to whip votes for the vote to happen on Monday. So this is a really, really important time for us to put pressure on the conservative Democrats and boost the progressives. The first thing you can do is call your representative, that callforclimate.com link. The second thing you can do, you're on this webinar, you care enough to give an hour of your time, give another hour of your time phone banking West Virginians, asking them to call Manchin. Manchin support is the only knife that can cut through this knot that we are stuck in right now. And we are actually going to do something where we are not going to continue with the program until at least 100 of us, there's hundreds of us on this call tonight. And we are not going to continue with the program until at least 100 of us have signed up to participate in this phone bank. So we're going to put the link in the chat again. So here it is. Just click that link and sign up to phone bank Tuesday or Thursday for the coming weeks. This is the most important thing you can do. And we're not even worth talking about this. All this is to get people to take action, because we need to take action. And there's no point in talking about all this if we're not going to take action. We're just going to pause. And Quentin can look on the dashboard and tell us how many people have signed up. So Quentin, are people signing up? Do you see it coming through on your end?
People are signing up. We're at 38 so far, and that was 38. Just the last 5 minutes that happened. So let me hit refresh again and see where we are now.
Someone asked, can we sign up only for a Thursday or only a Tuesday? Yeah, they are only Tuesdays and Thursdays, unfortunately. And if you can't sign up, maybe your job is to recruit someone else who can. And I was talking with a staffer on the Hill who told me recently, I asked, is there anyone else we should be focusing on? We've gotten a few questions in the chat. Any other moderates we should focus on? What I have heard from people in power on the Hill is it is Manchin, Manchin, Manchin. This is what it's all about. Have we gotten any more, Quentin?
Jamie, we're at 96.
96. Okay, I'm assuming that we're cruising right to 100. That's incredible. Thanks, everyone. You have unlocked the call to continue. That's all that I have to say. Thanks, everybody.
Thank goodness. I was afraid we weren't going to be able to bring Reverend Lennox Sherwood into this mix, and that would have been a real tragedy. But we're saved. Next, we're going to hear from an old friend and one of the most inspiring people I know. The Reverend Lennox Sherwood is founder and CEO of the Hip Hop Caucus and has been in this climate fight nearly from the beginning. Rev, welcome. And how do you see this historic moment in time and in our movement? Take it away.
Well, I had no doubt it was going to hit 100. So I knew I was getting warmed up. I was getting my water and everything ready because I knew they was going to come through. You know what I mean? I had no doubt. And thank you all for doing that. I appreciate you. I want to start off by saying that I sit in a unique position. I sit on the board of the amazing Chesapeake Climate Action Network. I'm also on the advisory board for Evergreen, and I'm also working with Bill on Third Act. So I guess I got my hands in all the cookie jars up here tonight. But I want to just finish up a little bit from an inspiring standpoint. You heard from Jamie and Quentin, and they're just such great young minds, and I have no idea they're going to get on Capitol Hill and get to it. And you heard my dear sister, Dr. Leah, she's something else, as Mike said. I want to figure out what Bill just said, though, about LBJ. And I want you to take this very seriously. The Build Back Better legislation is on par with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I want to say that again. The Build Back Better legislation, which you're working on, which you're calling for, is on par with the civil rights legislation. That means that folks from Medgar Evers, who was killed in his driveway, to the March on Washington with John Lewis and Dr. King and so many, to the 4 girls who were killed in Alabama, all fighting for equality, are on par with what we are fighting for now. The difference is actually not only are we fighting for equality, but we're fighting for existence. And so this is a moment that you have to understand where you are in history. It can be daunting, and I don't get that to you to be overwhelmed. I get that to you to understand that we have overcome. And as we saw back then with the Supreme Court and conservatives back in '64, we saw the same games they played back then, they're still playing now. Literally 58 years later, their game plan is the same. And so our game plan has to be one in which the only way that we have to come with such a moral fortitude, such of in our heart, knowing that if we fail, that it would be catastrophic. And that when they look us in the eyes, they need to see us and see within our soul, that we cannot allow for this to happen. We will not allow for all the things that are a part of the Build Back Better legislation to fall by the wayside, because we know what is different from '64 is that while that would mean if they had failed back then, they would be drinking from separate water fountains, which would be horrible if they had failed back then. But if we fail now, it is no longer about drinking from different water fountains, but literally drinking the water at all. That is what is at stake. Literally, the water we can no longer drink if we fail on this. So failure is not an option. We sit in a space now. And so I give this part that Mike liked so much, that when Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech, he said that one day they will be free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Speaking of equality, but since we're fighting for our existence, we are no longer saying free at last, because we've moved past that. We are saying that we will be fossil free at last. Fossil free at last. Thank God Almighty, we will be fossil free at last. Fight on, good fighters. Fight on, good fighters. Don't give up. We will build back better right now. All power to the people.
Thank you, Rev. I never get tired of your speeches. I never get tired of your energy, your leadership, your inspiration. Where would we be without you? Thank you so much. Always good to be with you. And that's pretty much what we got tonight. Now it's all up to y'all, everybody on the call. It's no longer a matter of months. Again, it's a matter of just a few weeks left to succeed for our planet. So let's all commit to doing what we can from now until this thing is over. I mean, please join the West Virginia phone bank. 100 people have already done it. Now, when you start doing it, tell 10 friends. As Bill McKibben said, we need thousands of people to call all his extended relatives in West Virginia and all their neighbors. And also, please call your members of Congress. Now, that only takes a few minutes, but get that out of the way first. 202-951-7780. Write it down, 202-951-7780. And as Governor Inslee said, tell them don't come home. Do not show your face back home until you pass this bill. Tell them to pass the whole bill, the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill with full funding for the Biden climate agenda, and do whatever else you can do. I mean, we all get so many alerts and emails and texts. If it's related to climate in Washington over the next 2 weeks, just do it automatically. If it's Sierra Club or Evergreen or whatever, just click away. Start clicking and phoning and texting nonstop. We got to get it done. We've struggled for so long on climate, for so long. From James Hansen's Alarm Bell to Congress in 1988, to Bill McKibben's book, The End of Nature, soon after, to the climate justice fights over Katrina and the Gulf oil spill, to the Keystone XL fight. We fought so hard, and the massive New York Climate March in 2014, and then to just surviving Donald Trump. It has all brought us to this moment, to this fight, to a few more 24-hour periods to save the planet forever. We have just a few days left to push the Biden climate agenda through Congress. So make sure you'll be able to tell your kids that you were part of it. So again, thank you to all our speakers. Thanks to everyone for joining this call. We had just hundreds of people on the call from all over the country, coast to coast. Special thanks to our partner groups who helped sponsor this evening's event. Climate Solutions, Greg Small, thank you so much. Western Resources Advocates, Fresh Energy, the Acadia Center, the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, and thanks to the entire staff of the Chesapeake Climate Action Network who worked so hard to pull this together, especially Stacy Miller working behind the scenes. So let's go get this done, y'all. Let's get it done. We can do it. It's been wonderful spending this evening with you. We'll see you next time. Take care.